Hey y'all, hope you're doing well. It's Mike with Ongoing Restoration. Wanted to talk to you in this video about temples and the construction process. Came across an article earlier this week that talked about some new construction methods being utilized possibly in some of the recently announced temples. This video might be a little bit lengthy, but I hope you get something out of it. It really stirred a lot of the goals that I had set for my career when I first got into construction. I kind of went back and forth for a little while. Initially wanted to go into residential, then I did an internship with a commercial construction company, and that really changed my perspective and got me excited about the commercial side of the industry. I started looking for work in 2012, and things weren't looking good with the economy, and it took a while, but I ended up getting a job with a residential builder, and I'm still with them a little over 8 years later. But let's get to this article. Let's see here. In May 2021, leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints held a press conference in Manti, Utah to announce a temple in Ephraim, Utah, and amend renovation plans for the Manti, Utah temple. During the press conference, Bishop W. Christopher Waddell spoke with LDS Living and revealed some details about the temple planned for Helena, Montana, a temple that had its rendering released mere weeks after being announced. There are lots of things that are taking place with temple design that is reducing the time it takes to design temples and to build temples all over the world. For example, the Helena, Montana temple. It was just announced, and it will probably be available for dedication in about 13 months. Holy smokes, folks. 13 months? That is really fast. And that's because of some design features that are happening. So this particular article talks about some of those different design features and methods, which is what I like to touch on a little bit. So the article continues, what kind of things are taking place that are reducing the time it takes to design and build temples? 13 months is a blistering turnaround time for a temple construction and dedication, a process that typically takes about 3 years. So you're talking about less than half the time. That's amazing. What does Bishop Waddell mean when he says some design features that are happening? Could this mean that parts of the temple are already progressing in their construction offsite? How else could a temple be constructed so quickly, even without a groundbreaking yet to be announced? Throughout the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, members have sacrificed their means to be able to receive the blessings of temple ordinances. Church leaders have struggled to bring the blessings of the temple closer to the saints. Different church leaders have engaged in temple expansion in their own ways. So it mentions President Gordon B. Hinckley, who was the 15th president of the church. He announced 78 temples during his tenure, including 42 smaller temples that were identical or nearly identical in floor plan and exterior appearance. The Nashville temple is one of those, which is awesome. I'm so grateful to have a temple close by. They just opened up, I think, April 26th to Phase 2B. So, and our Ward's Youth has 2 baptism sessions scheduled for next month. So looking forward to that. In 2000, 34 temples were dedicated. The speed of construction was in part due to the ability to copy and paste basic plans into many areas around the world. Now we're going to talk about, or this article actually talks about kind of how that was able to come to be, how they were able to speed that process up. Let's see, most of the temples were built on extra land next to existing meeting houses and shared a parking lot, helping to expedite the approval process for construction. I think that was part of the hang up with the Nashville temple. The original piece of property that they were looking at to build on, there was all kinds of petitions and protests even. People were complaining about the potential traffic that they feared was gonna turn up in that area, and you know, that's because they just didn't understand that you know, this isn't a building that we utilize on Sundays. But that's where I think it's really important to educate, you know, non-members about the purpose of temples and how they're utilized. Many of these smaller temples were announced and dedicated in the span of 1 to 2 years. As a result, the church was able to more than double the number of operating temples in the years of 1997 to 2002. Nearly 2 decades later, the average time it takes to construct temples on average, that's kind of redundant. The average time it takes to construct temples on average has risen dramatically. It's not uncommon for a few years to pass between a temple's announcement and its groundbreaking, and then 3 or 4 years for construction. So this is the typical timeline. So you have a few years in between the announcement and the groundbreaking, and then a few more years for the duration of the construction process, to the open house and the dedication. Many temples have experienced delays and have taken 4 to 8 years from announcement to dedication, such as the Rome, Italy temple, which took nearly 11 years from the announcement to the dedication, and the Kiev, Ukraine temple, which didn't break ground until 9 years after its announcement. That's really interesting. President Thomas S. Monson announced 45 temples during his nearly decade-long presidency. For a period of 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, he did not announce any new temples, and he indicated that the church was holding off announcing any new temples, at least in part because it was concentrating its efforts on completing those temples that had been previously announced. Moving to the present, from 2018 to May 2021, President Russell M. Nelson has announced 70 temples, causing a backlog of temples to grow. In a significant accomplishment in 2020, 21 temple groundbreakings were held, causing the number of temples in active construction to surpass the number of temples that were in the planning stages. But with 21 temples announced so far in 2021, the backlog is back. How might the church construct these temples in a way that is timely and efficient? Is there any correlation to this and the process that might undergo in building the temple in New Jerusalem? That's something interesting that I was thinking about as I was reading this article. One solution may be to take advantage of new construction methods that are beginning to reshape the construction industry. Prefabricated modular construction. Bet you never would have associated that with temple building, would you? So with prefabricated modular construction, sections of a structure are first designed in detail with software, then manufactured in a factory, and finally constructed and assembled on site. So to be clear, the sections don't just mean the paneling or other features that are brought in to be assembled on location. It means whole rooms or structures that are linked together to form the whole structure of the temple. If you think this method can only be used for mobile homes or portable trailers, you may be interested to know the hotel chain Marriott has been working for a number of years to use modular methods in its hotel projects. In Manhattan, they are planning to construct a high-rise hotel using this method. Each room is fully built in a factory and even includes the interior finishes and furnishings. Then a crane lifts the modules into place, resulting in a fast construction. So there's several advantages to this method. One is a faster construction time, of course, and then the second advantage is higher quality of construction. So faster because construction of the building doesn't need to wait on foundation work to be completed, and higher quality because the entire project is done under one roof by the same team and inspectors. So that really streamlines the entire process and really cuts out a lot of the time where project managers are waiting for inspections on mechanicals, all the like plumbing and HVAC and even probably even the inspection on the steel frames. Modular construction is often less expensive than traditional methods as well. So one may be skeptical on whether the quality of these prefabricated structures would meet the traditional standard of construction for temples. Reddit users responded to a pre-conference rumor with skepticism. None of the commenters, nor the purveyor of the rumor, had knowledge of the current trends in prefabricated or modular construction that are progressing in the industry. Furthermore, the rumor added folklore by attaching the number 1,000 and calling these structures endowment houses. I actually looked into that rumor. It was pretty interesting, but there wasn't really any credibility to it. Like this article said, it was really more or less folklore. The smaller temples of the Hinckley era did not employ modular construction. Instead, while most temples are built out of steel framing, these temples were made out of wood, like a house. The one-size-fits-all approach in this case led to temples in more humid climates suffering from issues with mold or even porous marble, and many of them have been quietly reconstructed using steel. That was the case with the Memphis temple. They had to go in and just gut it and redo the framing with steel. And while that was the more cost-effective way to do the smaller temples, I don't think that was a good way to ensure that those temples could last for hundreds of years, like they're purposing with these other temples around the globe and out west, like in places like Utah and California, and where they have the larger temples, the 3-story temples. All right, so prefabricating sections of a temple has the potential to solve the problem of keeping quality of construction high while still keeping costs down and having a quick construction period. It will be easier to have uniform standards in each structure. There are clues that the church is working on using this approach to build temples that are already announced for the near future. Among the church's more prominent temple construction contractors is Haskell, a design-build firm. These types of firms perform every aspect of a project, from architecture and engineering through the full construction and eventual handover, as opposed to hiring subcontractors to handle different phases. So, you've got one general contractor and they handle the entire project from start to finish, as opposed to going from one third party to another, and, there being conflicts as far as the communication, miscommunication and confusion and things like that. Now Haskell, this design build firm, they include in their portfolio the Barranquilla, Colombia temple. In it, Haskell explains that it uses a process called Building Information Modeling, or BIM. I learned about this in my internship with Turner Construction back in 2012. It's really fascinating. It's like a 3D Revit. So, and Revit is a software that's used to design floor plans and exterior elevations for architecture and stuff like that. It's really amazing because you can go in there and inventory all of your materials, and it's really accurate, and it takes the human flaw out of the process. Which is really important when you're looking at not even thousands of dollars, but millions. Building information modeling is used to mitigate design clashes prior to construction and greatly reduce the number of changes needed during construction, saving our client time and money. That was a quote from Haskell on building information modeling. It boasts that the temple was finished 6 months ahead of schedule and $10 million under budget. That's incredible. That, when you have savings of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars on a project or construction of a temple, that allows for more opportunities for other temples to be built. So that's an incredible blessing right there. Let's see. How much does it cost to build an LDS temple? So to kind of give you a little bit perspective, the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania temple, my family and I, we went and visited that temple in October 2018. When we went out there to go visit family, and it was amazing. We went through, they've got an underground parking garage, and then you take an elevator up to the visitor center and go through there, and you come out, and it's kind of like a, I don't know what you call it, like not a plaza, but like I can't think of the word, a courtyard that the temple sits on, and it's really peaceful, which is ironic because it's in the middle of this loud, noisy city. But while you're in that gate, it's amazing how peaceful it is. So talking about the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania temple, that temple is 61,466 square feet of space. The entire project consists of a little more than 243,500 square feet. And based on one estimate, that temple was budgeted at over $200 million to build. And the general contractor for that temple was Structure Tone, I think is the name of the company. You can Google them and they'll probably have it on their website. The Philadelphia, Pennsylvania temple is really incredible. If you haven't been there, I would definitely encourage you to go visit and just walk the grounds if you're not able to enter the temple. Like I said, it's incredible. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective on the cost of these buildings that the church builds and goes into construction. So obviously satisfied with Haskell's previous performance, the church partnered with the firm on the upcoming Quito, Ecuador temple. In the Philippines, Haskell is also working on all 3 temples currently under construction in Urdaneta, Alabang, and Davao. Recently, there was a job posting for the Haskell office in Salt Lake City that required previous experience with temple design and temple construction administration that will work with the church as a client. You know, what I mentioned earlier in the video, when I was younger and in school, probably even before I was in school, you know, I had a passion for music. I wanted to pursue a career in music, and when that didn't work out, you know, it led me to a career in construction. I went to school, got my associates and then my bachelor's degree, but I felt like I could put that knowledge and that experience to good use if I were to channel it towards working with the church and as far as like helping to build temples. And you know, I always thought about, you know, what it would be like when the church makes the announcement, or when the time comes to build the temple in New Jerusalem. Would I be equipped with the knowledge and the skills to contribute in such an incredibly miraculous project? And you know, of course, I'm in residential, and you know, it is quite a bit different when you're talking about costs, when you're talking about certain methods. But it's definitely something to think about, and that would be interesting to. I have had a couple years ago, I had some job interviews that really didn't turn out, but it was good experience, and it would be interesting to interview for a position like that. Let's see here. So in 2015, 85% of the members lived within 200 miles of a temple. And I'd like to see what that statistic is now. What the percentage is of members that live within 200 miles of a temple. Surely it's gone up in the last 6 years. I can only imagine. So the model for temple building is actually in 1 Kings chapter 7. And if you're not familiar with that chapter, I would definitely invite you to go check that out. It's really amazing. They used the finest materials and the finest workmen to build the temple in 1 Kings chapter 7. And not to be ostentatious, but to be beautiful and a wonderful tribute to God. Designing a temple used to take up to 2 years. Just the design. Isn't that amazing? Just to design the temple, just to draw it out as a concept, even the rendering. That process took up to 2 years. In addition to offering design build services, Haskell in Salt Lake City also lists design manufacture construct as one of their delivery methods they offer. On another section of their website, they describe that DMC, the design manufacture construct, delivery leverages manufacturing to cut costs, improve quality, and shorten time to market. Furthermore, they say, manufacturing streamlines the traditional approaches to engineering and construction with modular components and prefabricated assemblies. This allows off-site construction to occur much earlier in a project life cycle and reduces overall timelines. Standardizing design and construction workflows create efficiency through every step of the project lifecycle. Specifically, Haskell has made a strategic investment in a company named Blocks. That's B-L-O-X. Blocks is a pioneer of the DMC construction method, working to streamline and scale the process to make it fast and profitable. It has traditionally focused on the healthcare industry as its core market. But Blocks had been planning to add 6 additional production lines by the end of 2020. In part, Haskell was interested in Blocks because they used steel to construct modules instead of traditional wood framing. And that makes more sense. I don't know why anybody would go with a wood frame in modular building. It's just not sustainable. It just doesn't make sense in the long run. So if you're looking at modular construction, I think 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, you're going to find steel framing with that. Haskell has set apart a team to work full-time with Blocks to work on not only healthcare, but also religious cultural projects. At the end of Haskell's press release concerning its relationship with Blocks, Chief Operating Officer J.P. Sands drops a pretty big clue about what the future holds for temple construction. He says, right now, the future looks promising for Blocks and Haskell, with the firms teaming up for a large global church project to be delivered overseas. So can you think of a large global church that is working on multiple overseas projects and has a working relationship with Haskell? That would probably be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So how does it work? Potentially the first prefabricated temple built in completed modules in factory, shipped to location, and assembled on site appears to be the Helena Montana temple. The temple was just announced in April 2021 General Conference, and 16 days later, the church announced a location and released a rendering for this temple. Y'all, that used to take up to 2 years for them to even release a rendering. Now it's just a little over 2 weeks. Oh my goodness. So the church will soon file documents with the city. The temple will likely be placed where a current meeting house stands, and another meeting house will be built on the site. So I've been to quite a few temples that have a meeting house next door. The Nashville temple has the Franklin Stake Center next door. When we went to the Indianapolis Temple Open House, I think that was a new stake center that had been built right next door to that. And then the Sacramento, California temple that we went to back in 2018 had a meeting house next door to it, which they share a parking lot. All right, guys, I had to pause the video for a little bit to, spend time with my family and get the kids to bed. But now I'm out in the garage. We're doing some work right now in the living room, getting some stuff organized and put together. So just decided to come out here and finish this article. But we were talking about this company that the design build firm Haskell was working with, Blocks, and in their short history, they have focused on improving the construction process in the healthcare industry. Some examples demonstrate how the same process can be applied to temple construction. I think they included some pictures to go along with that, just to kind of show how they speed up the construction process for temples. So work on modules can proceed simultaneously with foundation work on the site. Modular components mean no subcontractors are required. to take care of electrical, HVAC, plumbing work. Pipes and conduits are installed on the back side of a wall while work is done on the interior. I think I'd mentioned that earlier. So walls are assembled with features such as cabinets, sinks, toilets, and light fixtures already in place. And you can actually go to Block's website to view photos of the manufacturing process. You can Google modular construction and see numerous examples of the process. It says, after shipping the modules on site, a crane puts them in place, much like assembling a puzzle. Workers then proceed to bridge and seam and attach exterior panels. So to put this into perspective, one hospital project took only 14 weeks from delivery of the modules to the opening of the hospital. And that's for a hospital, folks, which is arguably more complex and obviously less ornate than a structure like that of an LDS temple. And in fact, for temples, builders would likely employ precast concrete panels, which is a popular method and actually has won the church several awards, of which many temples currently are under construction and utilizing that method. One in particular is the Latent, Utah temple. And there's a picture here to show you what that's like. The precast concrete is basically vertically installed on the steel framework to secure the exterior elevation. And let's see, another example is the steeple would likely be assembled and lifted on top of the building in one piece, which was recently done for the Richmond, Virginia temple. So where could prefabricated modular construction be used? At close to 10,000 square feet in size, the Helena, Montana temple appears to be similar in floor plan as the Praia Cabo Verde temple. Satellite images have captured the progress of that temple's construction, revealing that the foundation was built in a way that may have been able to accommodate the placement of modules. So the temple was not built using prefabricated modules, but the foundation may have been a proof of concept, which might also explain the comparatively brisk pace at which the Cabo Verde temple, along with its stalemates in Guam and Puerto Rico, has gone vertical. Interestingly, the foundation for the baptismal font is in the center of the temple. The meeting house being built next door also has a foundation that resembles that of how a modular construction would be. So to be clear, there are some specifics to the Helena situation outside of prefab construction that seem to be accelerating the project's development, potentially giving us a temple in just over a year. That just blows my mind, y'all. 13 months, or what was it, 13? Yeah, 13 months? Really? That's incredible. Notably, it's obvious that the temple has been in planning stages long before its announcement. And this wasn't the church doing what it sometimes does in places like Utah, in issuing a temple announcement that completely blindsides the municipality that will host it. Nevertheless, DMC methods, design, manufacture, and construct, will greatly speed up the construction of this temple and others in the coming decade. I can't even imagine, but it's going to be interesting to see. the accelerated pace of the temples that are being announced and being built. The Helena temple model appears to also be in store for the Coban, Guatemala, and Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea temples. These temples feature just one endowment room and one sealing room. Now, I think there was a few temples that were gonna have two baptistries. I'll have to go back and check to see which ones those are, but that's amazing to be able to have that capacity inside the temple to get that much more work done. It's incredible. The temple in Coban had a groundbreaking in November, but the temple in Port Moresby is yet to have a groundbreaking. It is evident that the DMC construction method will be used in many locations overseas. There are a number of other temples that have already been announced that could utilize this construction method. For the temples in North America, the modules would be transported by trucks. For the ones overseas, the modules could be placed in cargo shipping containers and sent via ship to the country of origin. I'm not too sure about that. They could build modules in other countries because really the building codes vary based on the location in the country. But I do find this next statement to be true. Finding and working with contractors in nations outside the United States can be difficult, especially with the standards the church expects to build temples. Controlling the quality and construction for as long as possible and minimizing the on-site construction time will aid in decreasing the total time of construction. Absolutely. So there are some candidate temples that have been recently announced and may be suitable to have a prefabricated modular construction. These temples will have a fewer number of stakes and are located in places that can be easily reached by truck or cargo ship. Tarawa, Kiribati, Port Vila, Vanuatu, Beira, Mozambique, Cape Town, South Africa, Querétaro, Mexico, Torreon, Mexico, Casper, Wyoming, Grand Junction, Colorado, Farmington, New Mexico, Burley, Idaho, Eugene, Oregon, Elko, Nevada, and Yorba Linda, California. So I'd be interested to see the progress of those temples when construction begins and see what takes place in the process. The three temples recently announced in Europe, Oslo, Brussels, and Vienna, will also serve a small number of stakes. One obstacle that may or may not be able to be worked with is differing standards around the world in emergency signage or electrical voltage and outlets in each region. I'll skip ahead. That's kind of irrelevant. Many of the temples listed above may require more capacity than what a one endowment room, one sealing room temple can provide. I think I just talked about that a little bit ago. It appears that if the church proceeds with this method of construction, it will probably not replace the efforts to build larger temples in more traditional ways, especially as those buildings often involve at least 3 levels. So I'm actually happy if that statement is true. I would prefer, as opposed to building temples with wood, like they did in the early 2000s during President Hinckley's tenure as the president and prophet of the church. My opinion is if you want a temple to last hundreds of years, use a steel frame and not wood. So in his April 2020 General Conference talk, just a little over a year ago, Let This House Be Built Unto My Name, David A. Bednar said, Houses of the Lord are being constructed on the isles of the sea and in countries and locations previously considered by many unlikely to warrant a temple. In addition, Elder Bednar quoted Brigham Young, who said, to accomplish this work, there will have to be not only one temple, but thousands of them. We're approaching 200. I can't imagine. That would, I look forward to that day. I really do. y'all, I'm so excited for the future of the church. It's amazing to think about. So, as the church approaches having 200 dedicated temples in the coming years, it is evident that its leaders believe that temple construction is still in its infancy. And to build 1,000 temples would definitely take significant period of time and cost. As the growth in the number of meeting houses has slowed in the past decade, the church may be moving its resources to expand temple building. I think that's definitely the case. You know, our stake, we've been a stake since 2014, maybe it's, I can't remember exactly, but it's been quite a while, several years now, and we still don't have a stake center, which is interesting, but I digress. This time it may be at a pace that does not slow down, rather is continuously adding more volume delivered at a constant pace. So many were stunned when President Nelson announced 20 temples in April, but if these new modular methods are employed at scale, the plans seem less bullish and more feasible, or much more feasible. Amen to that. It's amazing. You know, it's exciting. It's incredible. And think about it. The church does not move forward with plans to build a temple if they don't have the money to pay off a mortgage. They are not interested in financing those buildings. They pay it off throughout the construction of the temple, and I think that's amazing. And for the amount of projects, the amount of temples that are being built, it's incredible to even think about how much money's involved. But you know, that's a straight up blessing from Heavenly Father to be able to do that during this time. You know, I don't know how many temples there will be prior to the second coming, but and I'm sure we'll probably still be building temples in the Millennium, and that will be an incredible process to witness and experience. So anyways, just wanted to share that article with you, something to think about. There's an infographic that I came across that I'd like to share with you too, that describes the building process that takes place in the construction of temples in the church. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So first, you know, there's the funding. The church sets aside funds in advance provided by offerings from church members so that it can build temples without mortgage or other financing. Then there's site selection. Church leaders seek guidance through prayer to identify areas or temples are most needed. They then seek inspiration to locate a site where a temple would complement the surrounding environment in the local community. I read an article about when the Kansas City, Missouri temple was being planned and designed, and when they were looking for a site for that temple, I think it was Elder Uchtdorf who President Monson had assigned to go and look at several different properties, and the one that Elder Uchtdorf felt impressed to select that particular property was the one that the temple was eventually built on. So that's interesting. Number 3, design. Architects design each temple to be both energy efficient and uniquely tailored to the local setting. that's one thing I enjoy about going to different temples, is seeing just the different features in the architecture, in the stained glass, in the columns, in the interior trim. It's amazing how it just testifies of the work that's going on. Number 4, construction. During construction, which typically lasts 2 to 4 years, only the finest materials and craftsmanship are used, as a temple is meant to be a long-lasting, beautiful tribute to God. Number 5, completion. After construction is completed, a temple holds an open house for several weeks, offering free public tours inside the building. Then it is dedicated as a holy place of worship where church members living the highest standards of the faith may enter. However, visitors are always welcome to tour the temple grounds. So, last year, we were planning on taking the family to the Washington, D.C. Temple Open House. And, of course, COVID squashed that. But with the announcement of the Tallahassee, Florida temple, we're definitely planning on taking our family through that temple open house. I think they just released a rendering for that temple, which is exciting. And they've got the groundbreaking happening next month in June of this year, so that's going to be awesome. So they're getting the ball rolling in Florida for the Tallahassee temple, so that's incredible. That's awesome. I hope you enjoyed this video. I apologize for the length, but there's just a lot of really neat information in that article. And something to think about. I think it's good to know where our offerings and our tithes go, and how they're utilized in the church, more specifically related to building temples around the world. So I'll leave that with you, and I will catch you later. Bye.